You're listening to Keepers of the Clow, a Cardcaptors podcast with Matt and Alex. This is a fan-produced podcast, so any views expressed are our own, and we are not affiliated with Kodansha, Nelvana, or any other relevant license holders. It's the perfect time to come back to talking about Cardcaptor Sakura because when the anime comes out, the fan base will rise from the dead.
There we go. That's why we're here now.
This is the perfect time to get this podcast rolling.
Timing is kind of always my thing anyway. Speaking of timing, this is the first, technically, episode in the Nelvana original North American air order, right?
Yes, all right, let's move into the episode. We are finally in...
The reason I mention it, hold on, before we jump in, is because I actually earlier today just recorded the final episode for season 1 of Moonstar. Sailor Moon. So I just think it's interesting that we're doing number 1 of the 90s Cardcaptors today when I did the end. You know what I'm saying? It's like bookends in the same day. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we are finally where the TV audience picked up Cardcaptors for the first time.
Yeah, we are. And I had a really great time today or yesterday when I was taking my notes because of how nostalgic this one was for me. But I tried to be, what is it objective or subjective?
It would be objective.
That one. I tried to be that anyway. So, well, yeah, let's get into it.
Well, I'll ask you that for a second.
Oh, I said, yeah, I tried to be that way, objective, but
right.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do this. Let's talk about episode 1, Sakura's Rival, and or Cardcaptor Sakura episode 8, Sakura's Rival Appears.
Yes.
Roll the title card.
Is this only episode 8?
This is only episode 8 of Cardcaptor Sakura.
Really?
Yep. And it became episode 1 for the North American release because Kids WB or Nelvana, I've yet to get a good answer on this, decided that they wanted to try and make the show more gender balanced. So they gotta get Shaoran, aka Lee, in here immediately.
I mean, sure. Based on what the social structure of the world at the time, I can see how they came to that decision, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know if they were right.
I don't think it was right in hindsight. I still feel like they could have at least run the first 2 episodes just to give Sakura and Madison their proper intros. But, then it's like, well, if we do the first 2 episodes, we can't just jump to episode 8. She's going to suddenly have a bunch of cards.
But we can start from episode 8 and jump all over the hell.
Yeah, exactly. We can just shuffle them up later. It doesn't matter. Actually, in this episode, she uses Fly and Shadow and Jump. So only 1 card is used that she didn't already have.
I would pay to hear you ask the person who made this choice about it, honestly.
Trust me, I am still trying to get in contact with anyone who worked on the show. No one will return my emails.
It would be so funny to hear you just be like, why though? Why? I bet they're embarrassed a little to some degree.
For them it was just a job, but yeah, it's not like anyone wants to put Cardcaptors on their resume. I can't even I haven't tried too hard yet. I mean, now that the writer's strike last year, or the writers and SAG strike, made it difficult to meet any actors last year, but now that's well over, so I should be able to meet some of them. But
True.
Again, no one's returning my calls or my tweets or my DMs or my emails or anything. I can't get a single person to respond to me on the topic of Cardcaptors. I'm gonna have to change my approach.
Maybe try generalizing it more and then niching in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't know. There was something to me about Cardcaptors. I guess it didn't do well.
No, I don't think. Well, I know it didn't do well. We only got half of the series.
But it did well in my brain. Does that make sense? So to me, it's always been a huge part of my psyche or my mental world.
Yeah, I mean, it's always stuck with me. It did great in Latin America, apparently. The Spanish dub is
that's cool.
Just a lot of fans around. When I got into the wider Cardcaptor fan base, a lot of them come from Central and South America. So apparently they got a really good dub, a really good faithful dub. That's still well regarded.
Interesting.
They got to bring back their original Cardcaptors cast for Clear Card. We didn't get that.
They could have. There was no real issue with the voice actors.
I'm guessing Carly McKillop doesn't want to voice act anymore. She's not really in anything anymore.
Oh, possibly. I don't know.
which it's kind of hard to bring anyone else back if you're not going to bring back the lead.
True, that would be a little weird. So anyway, this was my first introduction to the show. I believe I saw it live on WB Kids or whatever. And it's just like as soon as it started, I was like, I don't know, it just like kind of drops me back in that time for some reason. But the first thing we see is this dream.
Oh no, not again. That tower. That kid. Kiro. Oh no, he's got the Clow cards. I've gotta... Hey, come back!
And I remember this dream sequence so well because I think they used some parts of it in their commercials. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, probably. Like my looking through the dream, because again, I run these side by side, so the first thing I notice about the dream is that they throw a lot of expository dialogue from Sakura to kind of explain what's going on in the middle of the dream. A dream that in the Japanese version was otherwise silent, and just had music or just a couple of lines. Like in the English version, she's having a full monologue.
Well, that works out well for them because this is their first episode, which I was sort of, as the whole time I was watching it, I was like trying to watch it with both eyes of this is my first episode and this is episode 8. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To see if it plays well both ways. And I did think that like knowing that it does air as episode 1, I can see that it's more wordy for that reason.
It is super wordy. Like I made a note of this. Like they had to add a lot of extra dialogue throughout this episode to kind of fill in the gaps of like, hey, don't pay attention to the fact that there's 7 other episodes of establishing stuff that you guys don't get to see. We gotta shove in a bunch of things. We gotta give Sakura a monologue about like who Kiro is. I don't remember if they don't really introduce Tomoyo at all. It's just there's a lot. Oh yeah, and Kiro gets a whole recap of like what Sakura's whole deal is, basically, like to be a Cardcaptor, disguised as sort of a pep talk of like, get your act together, like there's stuff going on that you have to be ready for. I think this is the first instance of expect the unexpected.
Look, kid, you got to expect things when you least expect them.
Huh?
Yes, which can I actually have a really good, or I don't know if it's good, but a point about this style of entering this world after it's begun a little bit. And it created for me this sort of unique feeling of it was like joining a pre-established friend group,
right,
and being accepted by them right away. I don't know why it feels kind of like that, but it's like you get to sort of just step into this world that's already going instead of going through the standard like setup that we're used to in a way. And it made it, I don't know, I kind of like that. Maybe I'm alone here, but it's sort of interesting to have a show start like that because it almost never happens.
It's to some degree. That's definitely, I mean, honestly, that's how the manga starts. The manga starts with Sakura already having been a Cardcaptor for several months.
Maybe that's why they thought they could do it.
But the first chapter still gives you a little bit of explanation, although so does the Cardcaptors theme.
The theme does. I don't remember if there was like any intro before the episode or not.
No, they don't really add anything like that. But yeah, no, you're right. Like there's definitely shows that get away with it. I actually just started watching Kaito Saint Tail, and that is a series that episode 1 just throws you right into it. She's already Saint Tail. She's got a reputation, and the story just goes. No
Saint Tail,
no establishing at all.
The Night Thief girl?
Yeah.
Really? I've been watching. Okay, I haven't been watching. I've been looking at the VHS tapes for that because I used to rent them sometimes from the same place I got the Sailor Moon ones. And
I bought the Blu-ray for it.
Have you seen it all?
No, I'm only on episode like 10 of it.
Okay, when you finish, you'll have to let me know if it's worth going through all of it.
I would say so. I'm having a delightful time, but I have been going through a lot of classical magical girl stuff. Like I binged it. Like that's what I've been doing in this time off as I've been watching. I've watched Magical Emmy. and Persia the Magical Fairy, which are both Studio Pierrot girls. I'm in the middle of Saint Tail, and what else did I see? Oh, I had meant to watch Wonder Egg, but or no,
I haven't heard of it.
Something. It's something. It came out a few years ago. It's one of those shows that people call a magical girl show, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But as someone who watches a lot of magical girl shows, I do feel like I have to watch it just to weigh in on it accurately.
Fair enough. You want to have the reference point. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but I've basically just been steeped in like the 1980s, and now I'm in the 90s, and now here I am back in the later 90s with Cardcaptors.
That doesn't sound bad to me.
No, it really doesn't.
It's wrapped, just Saint Tail is wrapped up in this Cardcaptors time period for me a little. So that's fun. Well, we were talking about the dream in the flashback and how this, I guess, is similar to Saint Tail in the sense that we're kind of walking into the middle of a situation as the audience with this being the first episode.
It basically, it works in that sense, but like I said, the amount of added dialogue that they give makes this episode feel rushed.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't feel that, but I don't know why.
It feels, well, it's just like the word density of this episode is really high compared to some of the other ones.
True.
And like, I think that some of it is just playing catch up, and some of it is that's just how shows were dubbed at the time.
It was like they did a decent job, I think, of setting stuff up without making it obvious that they were setting it up. But then it does make it more wordy. So the dream that she has, by the way, I wanted to know, have we seen the dream yet? If we're watching from regular episode 1,
we have seen the dream, but the first time you see it, it's Sakura on the building in a costume that she'll be wearing much later in the series. This is in this variation of the dream. That's where Lee is standing on the building.
So it's unique to this episode, technically.
Yeah, it is. This is the only episode I think where he is the one on the building.
Okay, and it's not that long, really. And then she's immediately woken up by Kiro.
Yep.
Who I actually love the moment when Tori comes in and Kiro goes stuffed animal. Is what I call it. And there's this little guitar theme that happens, I think, whenever Tori shows up that I noted as well. I enjoy his little music sting.
Yeah, I now that you mention it, I think I do remember this. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking of the music. I'm just going to play the music. But yes, there is, Tori does have a theme.
I think it might be specific to him. And then another plushy detail. The one that Kiro ends up next to is a stuffed toy that looks like Sakura in one of her capture costumes. Do you know which episode that costume is from?
Yeah, that's from the costume. That's the costume she wears in the dream normally. It's what I call the sock costume, and it's what she wears at the end of the first season, or technically the second season. At the end of the Clow card arc, she fights the character Yue, and she's wearing that costume. That's what it is.
Isn't that interesting though, that it was first in the dream, and then when it's not in the dream, it's in the stuffed animal, and then eventually it becomes something.
Yeah, well, so that plushie is given to Sakura by Tomoyo. Canonically, she's given that plushie like the day before she finds the Clow book. So another interesting case of timing, but in Clamp world, nothing is coincidence. It's all Hitsuzen, or
I brought that up a bunch
or
this episode.
Destiny. Just say destiny.
Destiny, what's the word they use for it?
Well, okay, that's the thing. Hitsuzen is not the same as destiny. They are different concepts.
Hitsuzen is like magical destiny, right?
I honestly, that's a part of the Clamp multiverse I haven't really touched, because I'm gonna catch flack for this, but I find Yuko insufferable, so I never finished Holic.
I don't know what that means yet, and that's fine.
The character who brings the concept of Hitsuzen into the Clamp vocabulary, her name is Yuko. She's very important in the series called Holic, that was a sister series to Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. These are both from the 2003-2004 onward. Yeah, it's from that era where Clamp stopped being a series of smaller series and became synonymous with this big Clamp multiverse.
Right.
It
carries out through, not just in here, it's through all of them.
It just, up until this point, they never had a name for it. But yes, Cardcaptor Sakura talks a lot about fate and destiny and such. So
but you're right, it's not the same thing, because what it seems like to me is there is this magical agenda going on, and because the magical agenda has a predetermined outcome, they still have free will and stuff, and like they can live their lives, but it will cause certain things to happen to create the instances that need to occur to lead to the final outcome, right? Yeah. Like, for example, the chair being, which we'll get to in a little bit, the only chair empty is behind Sakura. Sure, that's a storytelling device, but it's also probably part of that, where it's like they're supposed to meet and interact more that day. So some magical influence made that be the chair that was free. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's the designated transfer student chair.
Yeah, whatever. But like, you know what I'm saying is like
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it is a storytelling trope, but also it's like, yes, of course, in your life you're gonna have a transfer student, so the transfer student chair is gonna be behind you.
Exactly, because we need it to be where he sits on this day. And anyway, I see a lot of that in this episode, and I kind of like it. But I'm also not as like steeped in Clamp as you are.
Yeah.
So I don't have as much cross reference. Back to the important stuff, though. They're already in class right away, right?
Let's say.
Oh wait, no, there's a roller.
I'm sorry. I am looking up my notes. Like, yeah, yes, there is another Julian scene. He did not get cut this episode. He is safe.
Because it's the first one.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first one as far as the American audiences are seeing. It's the second time they've done this sequence. So they've actually changed the trees from pink to green. It's a little later in the season, but otherwise, yeah, it's the same. It's probably reusing a bunch of the same animation of the three of them riding to school. And I'm pretty sure the Julian's dialogue is fairly different from the Japanese version, but yes, it is. It is Julian commenting on the fact that like dreams can tell you things.
Yes, he said he dreamt about having French toast for breakfast, and then he did.
Yeah,
which I thought was cute.
It is a very Julian thing to make it about food.
I like that is part of his character. We haven't gotten to know much about him through the Cardcaptors universe yet.
Nope. This is our first introduction to him from a Cardcaptors viewer, and yes, if you've been watching the series, like if you've been watching the Nelvana series, like all of the episodes, as we've made more than a few mentions of, he gets caught a lot.
He gets caught a lot.
He gets cut a lot.
Oh, cut a lot. He does seem like the
Julian cut counter that's up to like 7 or something. I don't remember.
That's kind of funny. Something else about his scene, though, you mentioned they changed the color of the trees. Did they just do that in the Cardcaptors, or is it just for this episode?
No, it's in the original animation, like because now right now it's like mid-May in the timeline. I have an obsessive understanding of the timeline in the Cardcaptor anime. So the first episode takes place at the beginning of April. It is now mid-May. It's been about 6 weeks since she became a Cardcaptor.
I love that you know that. Okay.
I have charts.
That's excellent. So it started when? April?
Yeah,
May.
April 10th is the actual date.
It's been 8 episodes. How many cards does she capture roughly a week right now?
I do have that number somewhere. I mean, it's been about 5-ish weeks, and she caught basically one card. No,
because she got double one.
She's got like 9 right now. She goes windy, fly, shadow, watery, wood and rain, jump, illusion. I feel like I missed one. Oh, and silent. So she's up to 9.
9 and 8.
9 and 6. 9 and 6 weeks.
6 weeks,
give or take, maybe 5 weeks.
That's pretty fast.
That's not bad. It's better
it's
better than in the manga where by the time Lee shows up, it had been 9 months and she had like 8 cards.
True.
But in the manga, there's only 19 cards. So, it's still halfway there.
So we got distracted again.
I am just so ADHD about this episode.
Me too, because I'm literally looking at the note where it says, I was distracted by the pretty green shimmering tree background behind Julian. What was this conversation about?
This became about how it's been a few weeks since the show began. Yeah, let's start talking about like
school?
The school scene, yes, where Lee
Have we seen this
finally.
Male teacher before, by the way?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've seen him.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen Terada.
I wasn't sure if he was significant or not, because I don't remember him at all.
He's not significant at all. Totally not.
Okay. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so the dude from her dream shows up, and I wrote Sakura's face reacts accordingly. I enjoyed her expression.
it does react accordingly, and unfortunately they cut a bunch of her other reactions.
There's more.
There's several reactions. There's several like silent interactions between her and Lee, or between her and Shalron in the subversion, of him just glaring at her in different contexts. And most of those are cut from this episode, probably more for timing than anything. But like, yeah, it really, there's an extra like 30 seconds of scene that really play up the animosity of Shalron to Sakura that you don't really get in the dub.
I do still feel like it came through kind of in the dub, because I still remember every time I watch this episode being like, what was his issue? Like, he seems so moody and grumpy.
Yeah, it does come through, but like there were additional scenes that they cut, which again I think was more of a timing thing, because you have to cut like 2 minutes of every episode just to fit with American standards.
I think so far, with the exception of certain like I think there was like a blood moment or something, but it's mostly been timing cuts, doesn't it seem like?
More or less, yeah. It's just been timing cuts, and as I said, like Julian is usually the most like cuttable part of every episode. Like his scenes just don't matter to the plot for most episodes. Poor guy.
I kind of hope we get to the end, and then someone involved in the dub writes to us, and they're like, "You're wrong. We all hated Julian." We did it on purpose.
I'm gonna reach out to the voice actor there.
That would be so mean. No, but yeah. So, like I was saying before, of course, Lee ends up getting to sit behind her, and I already told you what my theory was about that. Do you have anything about the classroom scene that you want to talk about?
No, other than just cutting one scene that's totally not important that regards said male teacher Tarada. There's man, do I want to keep dancing around this issue? Like,
wait, was it in the original?
Yes, it is. So
tell us what they took out.
Oh, come on. Okay, I'm going to stop dancing around the issue. So people who know Cardcaptor Sakura know that there is a very problematic relationship between Tarada and Sakura's friend Rika.
Ew, okay.
Yeah, so in this, and let me be very clear, just put this down right now. The anime takes out most of that relationship. Like they smooth it, they take the relationship that exists in the manga and they just kind of paste over it sloppily and be like, we're gonna take his side of it out and mostly just make it a she has a crush on her teacher kind of thing.
Okay, that's less scary, I guess.
But they still leave hints of it in the show, in the anime. So like there is a scene in this episode in the sub where Tarada looks at Rika and kind of has that kind of blushy, like can clear my throat, moving on kind of thing. So it's like the people animating this and adapting it to anime, they knew what they were doing. But they decided, but like I said, the anime sanitizes that relationship.
What year was it animated?
1997.
Okay.
And so the Cardcaptors dub obviously removes that relationship at all. We'll talk about it a little more because it's covered actually in the next episode where it actually kind of plays some more as a main plot point. But
right,
for the most part, like Cardcaptors, like, you know, if the original Cardcaptor Sakura spackled over it like kind of sloppily, the Cardcaptors dub definitely like made sure to cut it out entirely.
I mean, that's a cut that I'm happy to live with.
It is a cut that I think most people are generally
it takes out
generally people find agreeable. Like I was being coy about it in the previous episode, talking about the big one.
Thought you were trying to hide that he had like some secret magical thing.
No.
Not that he was like creepy.
Yeah, it's the big issue that anyone who comes into Cardcaptor Sakura is like, oh my god, did you know that there's a... Yes, we all know. It's like,
all right, as fans of this show, we are all going to agree and admit that sometimes people who made art in the past made questionable choices, and we don't have to support all of them.
Yeah, Clamp wanted to make a series that explored a lot of different types of relationships, and that was one of them.
I mean, I think here's the thing. It's so hard to talk about it because of what we now know, right?
It's okay. We're not monetizing this, so
but what I mean is, like, when this was made, that type of thing was like commonplace enough that it got made into an anime. Does that make sense? It's proof that used to happen.
Yeah, but it still wasn't legal.
It still wasn't legal.
And not in Japan, it wasn't.
Like, what I'm saying is, it's sort of like how do I say? It's a proof of history. Like, we cannot in 50 years turn around and pretend like it never happened.
Oh, no, of course not. We'll be judged like hell in 50 years with some of the stuff going on now.
Of course, but it's just, I think it's like when we look at stuff like that, I wish it wasn't in the show. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that it was, it's kind of like a reality thing where it's like that was the reality for the person who wrote this. Like that was part of their world.
Just was a thing. And it's a thing that we largely don't have to deal with. Plus, also, it's Clamp. Like Clamp is how do I put this? Like in the Clamp universe, babies come from storks, okay? A mommy and a daddy love each other very much and they hold hands, and then a stork comes and visits them. There is no sexuality in Clamp universes. Let's put it that way.
So when people end up together, they like hold hands and go to the fair.
When two problematic people get together in a Clamp manga, it's really not like as creepy as it's set. I'm not endorsing it, but it's like nothing.
No, I get what you're saying,
but nothing in the manga actually happens. We just put that because look, people are going to talk about this. Go ahead and talk about it in the comments for engagement, but like nothing happened.
Well, and thank God it's not in Cardcaptors, so we don't have to deal with it.
And it's not in Cardcaptors, so this is probably the most we'll talk about it until the next episode.
Side note, because I remember when this came up before, we talked about Sailor Moon a little because there is the age difference in that. But I was looking more into that, and somehow when they dubbed it, they accidentally made it worse.
Right, because
they made him older.
Yeah, isn't Mamoru 16 in the sub?
They're both teenagers in the real one.
Okay,
and then for some reason he's an adult. That
makes it so much better because because I always grew up thinking that Mamoru was an adult throughout the whole, because I grew up with the Deke dub, so I thought he was always an adult.
They made him seem so much older in that.
At least in the anime he started as 16. And
because when you brought that up, I was like, is it really that bad? Because I was like, I know that that's always sort of been a weirdness thing, but at the same time they were close enough in age that it was kind of like, well, they'll be older, you know what I mean? Like it was weird, but like it was never as creepy as this one is. But when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, like that. I don't know. I went to kids who, when I was in high school, I had a friend who was a freshman who dated a senior, and I thought it was weird, but it happened.
Yep, it did happen. Let's talk about it when we get to that episode.
Yeah, let's move on to
the next topic.
We can cut most of that.
Which is Lee assaulting Sakura.
But I'm taking over. Give them to me.
No! Exactly who do you think you are anyway, Lee?
You'd be surprised. Give me the cards.
Another fun thing, I actually thought this moment was kind of funny because I guess this did feel a little rushed because I was like, suddenly they're in the back and he's just like holding this board at her and then it shoots a ball of light or a laser light at her and he's all like intense. I would be like, what is your issue?
Yeah.
And give me that board.
Oh, I have so many. I have things. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say about this scene, this is the scene where I wrote it in my notes that like, this episode feels rushed, and it's not like they cut anything of this scene out. They keep the whole thing of him with his incantation and finding the cards and demanding them from her. But the way the dialogue was rewritten changes the tone and pacing of the scene so much. Part of that is because, and this is a thing that happened throughout all of Cardcaptors, is because they have to make Sakura tougher, they basically changed the tone to make her more combative than she was in the sub.
Clow cards!
The Clow cards?
I know you've got them.
Even if I did, I'm not giving them to you. I'm capturing them for Kiro.
Oh, I do really remember her as being like much more aggressive than other main characters. Like female main characters. I think that I liked that about her though.
Yeah,
I don't know. I kind of like that they did that.
Yeah, it's not that I'm against Sakura Avalon being more combative, but one of the things that makes it feel weird is that you have the kind of this tough girl dialogue being spoken by Sakura Kinomoto's animation, which shows a much more timid and afraid girl who is in the middle of this boy demanding that she hand over the cards, and he's physically more imposing than her. But like I said, it's incongruous with the dub dialogue that makes her sound like she's being tough, but she looks like, she's afraid.
It read to me as someone who was scared trying to act tough because of that. Does that make sense?
I could totally see that if Carly had given a better delivery in that way.
Fair enough.
But I'm not gonna I've said many times, I'm not gonna dig at an 11-year-old for not being able to convey that, because I agree. It with different direction, I think that totally could have worked.
Speaking of the voice acting, I did think Lee sounded a little stiff at first.
Yeah. This is I believe this is Rhys Huber voicing Lee, and I think nothing else. I'm not sure Rhys Huber ever acted again after this. Actually, also Lee has like 3 actors throughout Cardcaptors, so don't get too attached to him. I think he's the longest running Lee, but he will get swapped out at some point.
I remember Lee sounding like this. I don't remember if I ever clocked any of the changes growing up.
Yeah, this is the Lee that I am most familiar with, because like I said, I think this is the one that gets through most of the series.
I think he does fine later. I just noticed right away that he was a little, compared to, it sounded to me, because I remember we were discussing like the recording order, and I do think that it sounds like they had done a few for Carly before they did this one.
Right.
But for him, it might have been the first.
Yeah, this may I don't know how old he was, because I've talked about how like Carly was 11 when she recorded this. I don't know how old Rhys is. I don't think he's that much older than she is.
I'm kind of surprised he wasn't played by a woman.
I was surprised to find out it was a boy voicing him, which the fact that it sounds like a kid voicing him makes me think that he was fairly young. I'd have to look it up. But the IMDb up next to it. Like this version of Lee also, like I said, this is the voice of Lee that I remember. This is also the characterization of Lee that makes me kind of retroactively not like Xiaoran, because I remember this raspy brat throughout most of the series, and that's kind of transferred back to Xiaoran, who is not nearly as annoying in the sub, but in the Lee is just a tool. And it's I have this not a mantra. I have a saying, like, everyone's a jerk in Cardcaptors. Hero is more a jerk, Lee is awful, and even Sakura, I said she's more assertive, but there are times in this episode we'll get to, she's more of a jerk. So everyone's a jerk in Cardcaptors.
That's so funny. I never really thought about it that much, but I guess he is like really surly.
He just gets worse throughout the series.
Yeah, although for some reason I think I really liked him in the first movie.
He may have been voiced by a different person at that point.
But I loved that movie, and I thought he was great in it. I can't wait till we get to that. Anyway, so yeah, Lee's voice well, hopefully it gets better. I didn't know he had 3 voice actors. That's interesting.
He has at least 2 for Cardcaptors. I think the third one might be the entire recast that they did for the second movie, because Kari Walgren is the voice of Sakura in the second movie. So I don't think they got any of the Nelvana crew to do the voice for the second, because it had already been bought by like Funimation by that point.
Right. Speaking of voices though, Madison, who runs up next, is great as always. Every time she talks, I'm just happy. I'm just like, I love her.
Maggie Blue, always good. No notes from her.
No notes. 10 out of 10. She shows up, and Lee, who gets Lee off of Sakura?
That's where this is where Tori climbs the fence, and
yes.
He doesn't actually ever touch Lee. Like, Lee jumps back on his own, and these two are going to square up, and this sets up a great meme that I remember, which is just like, because you have to remember that like that Tori is 17-ish right now, and Lee is 10. So it's like 17-year-old about to square up and beat the hell out of a 10-year-old.
Yeah. And remember, at 10, anyone who was like 17, you're like, oh my God, you're like a whole adult.
Yeah. Although this is Lee we're talking about, I actually am fairly certain he could easily hold his own against Tori. Like,
oh yeah,
he is completely trained. He can do kung fu. He knows kung fu.
Well, but that's what I was going to ask you, because we have Tori, and then and he already is starting to act weird with Tori, but then Julian shows up and like pole vaults over the fence like some crazy Olympian one-handed with like a bag of food in the other hand, and then tries to give Lee food, who starts acting really weird and runs off.
He does. This is the first. I mean, it's the first interaction we've had with Lee. It's the first indication that Lee is inexplicably, there it goes, inexplicably afraid of Julian.
Which is funny because I couldn't tell what it was, because like,
well, it's okay.
The way, with the blushing, I remember when I was watching this as a kid, I was like, does he like him? Like, what the hell is this?
Does he like him? It's explained a lot later in the series exactly what this reaction is. But yeah, for the moment, let's just go ahead and say that he's got a little boy crush on Julian.
And that happens. The one thing I did want to note, I love the mark he left when he fell into this, I think it's the school garden. There's like a little body imprint. I thought that was a cute animation point here.
That is like peak like animation, because the ground is obviously, if you know anything about animation, the ground is obviously a background plate. So they had to animate they have to animate a section for just his face plant on top of the background plate, and then him on top of that. It's great.
I appreciate the effort.
It doesn't look crisp, but it looks that kind of, it's an artifact of celluloid animation, classic ink on cell that I love. That's why I enjoy watching anime from the 80s and 90s, where there's just that human touch to it.
That's so funny. We just closed talking about that at the end of the Moonstar episode, of like that human touch that is like, there's some kind of magic that goes into the hand-drawn stuff that is just never going to be in digital. We've said it before, but yeah. No, I just love that so much. And I think we all know technically, or I know some of why he was acting like that, but we can let it unfold with the show, I guess. That's fine.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it now. It's just the point is that it is a mysterious reaction that he has to Julian. Maybe I know we've been sidetracked so many times, but I just want to rant about this. Maybe he's reacting to the really stupid line that they give Julian to say, which is that, and I have my notes here. I'm just going to say that Julian says that they had an astronomy test, and that had a question about, that they had a physics exam, and there was a question about quasars on their physics exam. Quasars are an astronomy topic.
I was like, I'm already lost. What?
The point is that we talked about this before. I really just can't stand the way that the dubbers feel like they've just never gone to school. Like, they're writing dialogue for students, and it's like, I'm not sure any of you have ever actually been to public education.
That's so funny. It could be a character choice. Maybe he's supposed to be getting it wrong on purpose. Maybe he's an idiot.
I don't want to give them that much credit. I'm pretty sure they're just bad at writing school dialogue, like believable school dialogue.
Well, you remember the show better than I do, so if it comes up more, I'm assuming it's probably that. But I didn't even notice that. That's funny though.
It just personally bothers someone who loves space.
Well, it's like me with music. Like whenever I see in a movie, if there's live or supposed to be live strings and then it's dubbed over it, I can always tell because the bow movements don't match the sound. And it looks, to me, it's so insane looking, because it's just like, that wouldn't happen like that. It couldn't make that sound. Just the thing about. So
yeah, it's just great.
Yeah. But speaking of space, which has nothing to do with this, I guess, but a storm is rolling in as Sakura and Madison are walking home from school. I love the weather, the way they animated it in this episode,
with the sudden thunderstorm, except it's not raining.
Well, it really gave like rainy day vibes though, really well. And also they ran to take shelter in the giant penguin.
Yes, it's Cardcaptors' first introduction to the penguin statue,
which is in episode 1, which is I think why I associate it so heavily with the show, because I had that VHS. It's the first episode. I think I must have watched this episode like a billion times. Is it in the show a lot?
Yeah, the penguin park is a very common set piece. Like it's a main feature of several action areas.
Okay, that's also why then.
Yeah, so you'll see King Penguin plenty of times.
Love him. So there's no rain, which is interesting. Why is that?
Because it's the Thunder card.
Yes, lightning, which we see kind of jumping from lamppost to lamppost, which was kind of cool, and it scares off a workman. Poor guy. That would be terrifying.
He's just trying to do his job in Tomoeda, cleaning up all this magical collateral damage.
Right? He's like, I don't get paid enough for this. And then they kind of are hiding and they see that happen, and then they're just gone. They're home? Like, when did they go home?
So they actually kind of, I think they cut some of those scenes. I think they cut the scene of Sakura coming home, or at least part of it. So that's kind of why there's like a sudden cut. But yeah, Sakura at home, she's talking to Kiro, and tells him about Lee, who and then this jumps into Kiro giving extra expository information, because this is already an expository scene in the sub, but he's got to give extra expository information about where the Clow cards come from, a little bit like information that in the sub you already kind of knew, but in the dub they got to re-give it to you because again, this is the first Cardcaptors episode, so we gotta catch the viewers up a little.
And also, as someone who we haven't been doing it like it's not back to back, right? So if I hadn't seen it in a little while, I kind of appreciate the recap anyway,
right?
If it's 8 episodes in. I don't know. I thought that there was one interesting note about this scene, and it was that it's like the opposite of how the episode began, which was Kiro was like yelling at her to wake up.
Oh, right.
She's yelling at him to wake up. I was like, that's cute. So I liked that. But yeah, there was a lot of explanation here. Setting things up.
Like I said, there's just I wrote it down. It's like, yes, there's extra dialogue here just to fill in gaps for when you didn't, just for the viewers who haven't seen the first 7 episodes.
I did like the thing they showed episodes during it, though, the people with the hoods or whatever. I thought that was cool, and I like that he marched around with a spoon.
Yeah, it was great.
I thought that was
like cool. Kiro is a very well animated character. He's one of the better magical mascots. Like having coming off of so many of the Studio Pierrot magical girls who were the classic 80s girls, like they all have mascots, but Kiro's just better.
He's got a lot of personality.
I may be biased, but like Kiro's kind of the best of both worlds as like a magical guide and also a just kind of helpful expository information in general.
He's sort of like a proxy narrator.
Yeah, he does fill in stuff, and yeah, he fills in, and it's kind of his role to do that in this. It's why he kind of loses that role in Clear Card, because it's like you kind of went well outside the scope of his knowledge in Clear Card, because he only knows about the Clow cards. He doesn't know anything about the Clear cards, so he kind of useless.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
But here in the Clow arc, he's a-okay. He is a very helpful, not stuffed.
Right. I don't remember if they have introduced this or not in the first 8 episodes, but I learned from him that some people are born into the tradition, like Lee, which is what he said, or some people are chosen, like Sakura, who had the ability to release the cards, right?
Yeah, I think that's more the dub change, but yes, it's establishing that Lee comes from a magical family, and it's establishing that there are magical people in the world that pass through bloodlines. That's where Lee comes in. He's related allegedly distantly to Clow Reed, but the fan base has looked at this pretty deeply. It's more like Clow Reed is like a distant uncle, because we're fairly certain that Clow Reed had no children, so he's not like directly related.
Okay, I mean, it was a fair question, because so he's not. Why did they say he's related? They just made it up.
Again, it's not that they're not related. It's the dub kind of misinterpreted the I don't even know if it's misinterpreted.
They put more emphasis on it than
they put more emphasis on it, because like the sub just says that they are descendants, whereas the dub kind of more explicitly says that like they're like blood related, which is like not really. It's true, but it's not like as true as like it sounds. It's not like Clow was his grandfather. Clow is like his great uncle.
I do think, though, that having an explanation for why he isn't automatically entitled to the cards was smart, because that would be a question as an audience member. I would be like, wait, if he's related in any way,
right?
Like, where is her connection, right?
Right.
But I did also, during this moment when he's explaining everything, like why she has the power for it and all that, I love when the cards come out and like hover around her.
That's a great
Has this
scene.
happened before?
I think this is the first instance where they kind of do this sort of like cards float around her kind of thing. It is a thing that Kiro does periodically, where he can just levitate the cards like this. But yeah, I think this is the first time that this occurs in the show.
Right.
So
I just love that.
And as a pseudo episode 1 kind of thing, it's actually a really good moment.
It is. It's a really it's such a there's like a great balance with Kiro between, like you were saying, he's got all these different hats, right? He's like the sidekick, he's expository, sometimes he's humor, sometimes he has to whip her into shape, and it just, I don't know, it gives him like all these different facets.
Yep. And also in this
ahead.
it also here, it like, because he floats the cards out, it as this pseudo episode 1, it shows us that Sakura already has access to a few cards. So like it's showing us some of this arsenal that, even though we, the audience, as Cardcaptors audience, haven't seen this yet, it's establishing that like she's been doing this for a little while and she's already been semi-successful at, does have cards.
Which I think is cool to come in on that. So it's like, okay, we can kind of skip the whole, like, I don't know. It's like, I like the setup episodes. I've liked all the ones we've watched so far. But if I didn't know they existed and I only saw this one, you can't miss what you don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I still think it works.
That's the Cardcaptors experience. If you didn't know that there was like 30 more episodes that we never got to see, you wouldn't necessarily miss them.
Exactly.
They did a good enough job in the dub, but it's still fairly clear that there was more to it.
Right. Which, speaking of more to it and details, I love the pink phone, as we've said many times. Madison calls her on it, and she's told to look out her super awesome skylight window. And then this is when we jump to her in the capture outfit.
But pink frills, Madison?
It's not pink, it's cyber rose. It's high tech and it's in all the magazines, Sakura.
Huh? High tech, huh?
Non-conducting titanium and rubber.
Well, she's got a point there.
Rubber will protect you from lightning.
Only for you, Madison.
Right after that, which to me, I remember this one a lot because it was on the first VHS cover and the DVD cover. What else was it used for? Do you know?
This is just a very popular costume. I think this is colloquially known as the Black Cat costume, even though it's like mostly pink, or Cyber Rose as the dub calls it. But yeah, this is a very iconic costume for Sakura. And it's used in a lot of merchandising. A lot of figure lines include it. Keychain lines include it. It's just one of the more popular ones for some reason. I honestly don't like it that much, but
oh really?
Yeah, but as far as the fan base is concerned, they are all over this one. So
I think I know why.
It gets used in a lot of market. Oh, I mean, Cat Girl, got it. I'm totally tracking on why, but like
I think there's a couple things. I think black and pink goes really well together, though I would have gone with a lighter pink. And I think that the fact, yes, there's the cat girl thing to it, but then it's also an apron, and it's like a fluffy apron, and the aesthetic of apron for some reason is like pleasing in this style. I don't know. I get what, I don't personally like that, but I noticed it today when I was like, oh wait, it's like, it reminded me of the house husband guy for some reason.
No, I like absolutely. I think this is a good costume. I like the composition of it. Like,
plus it has a bell.
It does have a bell. Like the boot, they're not like really high boots, but they're a little higher than normal. But like the boots, the tights, that since the tights and the lower part of the skirt are the same color, it basically it's still got that effect of like shoes, no socks skirt, just in a different color palette. That's still like, yes, I like the composition of this one. It's just it's just not one of the ones that I rank very high, but like I said, the fan base is all over this.
I don't know where I would rank it if I saw them all next to each other. I think the pink for me is a little muted. And I think that I like the concept better than the execution. But I like the bell, and I like that Kiro has one.
Concept better than execution is, I think that's a good way to put it.
Because I think I would have not done the apron style. I would have gone with something a little more like less fluffy, probably. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think of the costume. Maybe everyone's going to be like, we love it. You guys suck. Whatever. Make your own show.
Look, it's definitely a solid 4.5 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
There was room for improvement, but it's still good.
I did appreciate the detail that it was made out of rubber and titanium.
Yes, which I don't remember if titanium definitely not. I don't remember if the sub says it's made out of rubber. It doesn't look like it's made of rubber, but sure, whatever. It's like,
right. Sure.
Yeah. It's whatever you say it is, okay? It's animated.
It's rubber in quotes. They bring up the rubber thing again in Kiro's corner, so they were really pushing that.
They do.
But so let's go. We're in the card capture now.
Yes.
Portion.
Where she captures Jump and she goes chasing it through the town. So this is our first introduction to she flies after it first and then jumps. So she chose both of her main utility cards. So again, for a first episode that's actually good, it shows like a couple of the things that she's really capable of. And she chases it all the way to the school, and then we have Lee on the roof calling her pathetic because, again, everyone is a jerk in Cardcaptors, and Lee is very jerky.
It's the dynamic it reminds me of. I don't know if you've seen it, some of our listeners may know it, but in the Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer movie,
that is a deep cut.
There's a character named Chris who is like the boy counterpart, I guess, to Rainbow, and there's a lot of this energy.
He's got the flying like horse thing.
Yes, love him. He's great, but there's a lot because it was made in the 80s, so there's a lot of like girls can't do things boys can do. I'm a girl, I can do anything a boy can do. Like there's a lot of that, and there's just like this weird rivalry for no reason.
I'm just shaking my head of why I know so much about Rainbow Bright,
because it's excellent. That's why everyone should watch it.
1988. I didn't grow up with this.
I was born in 89, but it was at my local video store, and it was the most colorful thing there, so I was like, we're getting it every time. I don't care.
Fair enough.
Yeah, my parents couldn't handle it. Anyway, so yeah, we have this capture scene where I like what you were saying, that we get to see her utility right away. And it does kind of show off a lot of her skills. And then the thing Lee says, though, that force, know my plight, release the light.
Yeah, that's his primary spell.
They must have used that in every commercial for this show ever.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. That's like his only spell, which it does a couple of different things, but that's because they didn't bother translating it from the sub, because he mainly has two spells that he uses. He mostly uses lightning and wind. He has the ability to use other ones, but those two seem to be the main ones that he uses.
And then he gets cards too.
Yeah, but in the dub, I think he just uses the single spell the entire time, and it just whatever happens.
This has always been unclear to me. Where does his non-card magic come from?
Just standard magic stuff. Like it.
So people just have it here.
Yeah, it's discussed in the show, like in this episode, where there are traditions of magic that are done by other things. Like Clow was special because he made a new kind of magic. That's what he did when he made the Clow card. And that's what set him apart. And that's the same in both versions, that the Clow cards are a unique new form of magic that Clow made. But there's other magic that other people can do. You see that a little more in the Clear Card manga, where we get to see some of the other families of magic. So, but
it's not a secret then.
Well, it is a secret from the general public. These people are secretive, and like they live outside the view of normal society. So
it's like Harry Potter-ish then.
Yeah, it's basically, you look at it as that magic is a thing that exists in the world and only a select few families know about.
So it's like real life. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So it's like the Illuminati is real and they're in Cardcaptors.
Yeah, exactly. Cardcaptors was made by the Illuminati. That's why they dubbed it so weird.
So yes, like Lee's powers are purely just good breeding. He has the like this is the Lee family magic that he can do. It's very,
I kind of find that interesting. Yeah.
So Lee uses the magic that he's born with to snuff Thunder in the face. Thunder, which by the way he calls Raiju, which is,
yes,
it is Japanese for Thunder Beast, and it is completely pointless.
That's Thunder's visible form?
You are looking at Raiju, the Thunder Beast. Boy, you are hopeless.
Back off.
Like no other Clow card is given any kind of like extra
I thought
name.
So. I was like, wait, what?
This just felt this just felt like some kind of weird flex from Lee on her. It's like, I know more about these cards than you do.
To me, it feels more like the writers were toying with giving them all names, and then when they realized none of them had names, they were like, that's a lot of names to come up with.
That's not necessarily a bad guess either.
Right, because this one was easy. Raiju is the thunder god, but what are you going to do for like Silent? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, what's her name going to be? Cynthia?
I guess.
We should give them all pedestrian names.
So yes, I guess, well,
this one's right.
It's just it's just some kind of weird flex that he has on her. Yeah, so they do that, and she wants to try to capture it with Wendy, and he chews her out, which again in the sub is actually pretty close, more or less. Is like Wendy's not going to be able to fight Thunder. He asks if she has the shadow card, which she does, and that says like, okay, cool, I'm going to go hit it again, and then you use the shadow card to capture.
Yes, which I liked. They were strategizing.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
It was nice to see them working together right off the bat, even though they are like so hostile. But this also leads, and this leads to like a weird, this leads to like kind of a weird capture animation where it's one of the few times where like a card is used to capture another card, and then when the cards are sealed, both cards appear like on the floor.
It happened one other time, I think, or no, she sealed two at once already.
Yeah,
that was the rain and the wood.
Yeah, but she didn't use one to seal.
I love that episode. Sorry. Anyway.
No, that's
no, you're right. And I do have a note here. This capture felt a little quick and anticlimactic because of that, what you were saying.
Yeah, and that's just a product of the original episode's pacing. That has nothing to do with Cardcaptors cutting it down.
Yeah. And then Lee storms off at the end after fighting with Kuro because he was a jerk and said that Sakura was not good at this.
Yes. And this leads into, I mentioned it earlier, everyone's a jerk in Cardcaptors, even Sakura. Like that's this is that moment where
except Madison.
Even Madison has her like whatever.
Hi, Lee. Whatever.
Like
really?
Valley
Girl,
yeah, true.
When he storms off, but like so in the sub, when Shaoran meets Kiro, and Kiro bites him, Sakura is kind of like shocked, and is almost scolding Kiro for it. But in the dub, when Lee gets bitten by Kiro, Sakura says, "Serves you right."
Serves you right.
So she's on Kiro. It's like
totally different.
It is a completely different tone. It's like I said, it's like everyone's a jerk in Cardcaptor.
That's so funny. Well, I don't know. I don't mind the tone change. I do remember though, like just after watching all of this, for some reason in my memory, when I casually think about Cardcaptors, Lee is not quite as like grumpy as he actually is in my brain. But in the show itself, he really,
he's just a brat in Cardcaptors.
He comes in like strong isn't even like the right word.
No, he's just obnoxious.
Yeah, it's he's not that likable. Really.
No, it's like I said, it kind of retroactively made me not like Shaoran as a character because Lee had such an influence on like my perception of him.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious to see how I feel about Sakura, like the original, after watching all of this, because I'm pretty partial to Sakura Avalon so far. You know what I mean? I think I might be a little put off by her being so like timid.
Yeah, they definitely, like I said, they give her a little bite in Cardcaptors, and
yeah,
it's why I see Sakura Kinomoto and Sakura Avalon as two distinct takes on the same character.
Yeah, totally. We should rate the episode.
Sure.
You want to go first?
As a Cardcaptors episode, I would definitely give this one like a 3 because the pacing issues are just such a mess. I understand that they needed to cram a lot of exposition into an episode that shouldn't have been the first episode. So I'm giving it a 3 to be nice, because otherwise I'd probably say it'd be a 2.5 for the pacing problems.
Okay. Wow. For the audience, go ahead and let us know what you would give it. I actually gave it a 4.5.
Wow.
I thought, yes, there are probably a lot of issues to pick through. I kind of highlighted that right away because I knew that there had to be some. But I had like such a good time with it anyway. I was kind of like, it's fine. I still really enjoy it. It has a good nostalgia factor for me. So I think anyone who is from this time period who's not as deep into this universe as maybe we are, will probably have that same kind of reaction to it. And I think that the reason it didn't get a 5 is because of the pacing. It did feel a little bit quick. But minus it being quick, I kind of felt there was more balance in a way between we got to see home life, school life, overall story, and a weekly capture. So like fitting those 4 units in, I think they did a good a job as they could with the timing. Yeah, I think it's a great episode. I I think people could still watch it as the first one if they wanted to.
I think it functions well enough as a first episode. In fact, watching it as the 8th episode in this series, yeah, a lot of that exposition feels pointless because, I know what's going on. I think it functions. I've said before that I think Cardcaptors functions. I just don't think I agree with the fan base. I don't think it does the series justice, but I think that Cardcaptors works in a vacuum. And this episode, sure, yeah, this episode works as a introduction to a series that cut off the first 7 episodes.
Yes, and sometimes experiencing something in a mental vacuum makes it better.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do that? Do you know what I mean?
It's so hard to turn off my brain and cut off all the extra stuff at this point. But boy, do I try, especially with Cardcaptors. But
yeah,
considering that I'm watching both the sub and the dub next to each other, it can be hard. It's impossible for me to watch Cardcaptors without knowing the rest of the series.
Oh, really? I don't know. Maybe I have a unique ability, but I can almost I can watch something and I feel myself remembering and I'll just be like, no, I'm going to choose not to because I want to not remember because it's more interesting because I'm rewatching it. I don't know if you can do that or not, but I can feel myself actively starting to pull up the details and I'll just choose to not so that I can enjoy it in a vacuum kind of.
No, I can't really re-experience something like that.
It's great.
It sounds great. It sounds magical, but no, the best I can do is sit on something for 2 or 3 years and forget about it and then go back and watch it again. That's about the closest I can do.
I mean, that's pretty good. You'll probably do that eventually with it. But I think for our listeners, if you're probably someone who hasn't watched it in a while, and if you are a fan of the original, I would say put down the original for a little bit. And then when you go to watch Cardcaptors, prepare to watch it as its own thing. And just pretend just literally pretend we're still kids, that you haven't seen the original. And if you had to have seen it, just pretend you don't care for a minute, even if you do, and try to experience it as its own thing. I just think it's worth it. I don't know, but anyway,
it's at least worth trying. And like I said, yeah. I agree. I maintain that Cardcaptors watched in a vacuum without being compared to the original series, I think it works. And just to put the link back up here, provided it still exists when I'm recording this, the entire series is still up on the Internet Archive, as far as I know. So you can watch along with us now.
I think some is on YouTube even.
Some of it is on YouTube. The ones that aired definitely are on YouTube. But yeah, the Internet Archive, put it on the screen. It has all of the episodes. So you should be able to watch if you want to watch the original series.
I don't see why not. We're going at a slow enough pace that you guys can take it, one bite at a time. It can be your 30 minutes to go back to whatever was going on in your lives when you were watching this before, or to experience, I don't know, something unique, because it's its own unique little thing that was born out of the weird requirements of dubbing in the 90s. I really had a great time with this episode. I know it's not your favorite, but I don't know.
But we're here now at the actual the viewed Cardcaptors. We're actually gonna get people that have actually seen these episodes now.
That's true.
That'll have actually been nostalgic for some of these episodes. We're at that point in the series now where these episodes were on it.
This was the first one that I really felt oh my gosh, I remember, that strong. Oh yeah. And they do such a good job with setting the tone just with the sound effects in addition to the music and stuff.
Right.
It's a very specific. I don't know. I feel bad for so funny. I feel bad for people who haven't gotten to go there with it. Do you know what I mean? It's a very specific.
I'm not sure, but I hope it continues, or I hope I get to experience, because next episode is the first ever episode I got to see. So because I missed the first broadcast of it. Or
were you mad? Did you know?
No, I mean, I didn't really know that the series existed until I caught that one. And so, but I mean, when I say I missed the first broadcast, I mean, I just missed the first episode. I didn't miss its first entire run.
Oh no, that's what I thought.
I did get in early. I just didn't get the first episode, which is pretty typical for me. It turns out I missed the first 4 episodes of Pokemon before I started watching it. It was pretty common for me to come into shows 2 or 3 episodes.
Well, at least you get there.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Which again for Cardcaptors, me coming in on the 2nd episode of Cardcaptors is everyone coming in on the 9th episode of Cardcaptor Sakura. So really, we're all on the same page.